Welcome. This is Rising from the Ashes. I'm Anna Klint, your guide here to help you transform 2020's painful lessons into deep healing for you and the planet. I am thrilled to invite and have today with us Maureen St. Germain. You know her as the Practical Mystic. She's also the founder of the Akashic Records International. She is an award-winning author with several books, many of which have been translated into multiple languages. She teaches all over the world when COVID is not a thing, but we have her here with us today. Thanks for being here, Maureen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you as well.
Oh, we're so stoked to have you. Okay, I'm asking everyone one word to describe 2020.
Well, we joked around about what to call this, and I feel very strongly that this is the F word of the last year, and it's called flexibility.
Yes.
When you're thinking about that F word, you really need to be flexible.
That's for sure. That's for sure. There have been a lot of things to be slinging the F word around this last year. Yeah, absolutely. Why? Okay, and that's great. So flexibility. So that can give us some insight into why this year was such a challenge for so many people.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing. I go into the records quite a bit, and the Akashic Records do answer the question why. And part of what I am observing is that humanity, is at a reset, and we are being given an opportunity to decide where we will align. And as I wrote about in the book, Beyond the Flower of Life, and a new edition of that's coming out this spring.
Awesome.
So you'll be able to get it. But I wrote about 3 earths, and I have come up with labels for the 3 earths. And the 3 earths are the ascending earth, the do-over earth, and the crash and burn earth. I don't put any attention on the crash and burn earth. That's for people who are simply choosing not to evolve. They're choosing not to take the opportunity, whatever it is, in front of them. The do-over earth is all the good people who somehow fell out of alignment with the divine order and the divine plan. Now, what's interesting to me is in the records, Sanat Kumara channeled something a few years back, and it was a few years ago, and he was talking about no more karma, and he referred to the 3D game, and he said, the game is over. Will you, the game won't be, how do you put it? The game is over. The game will end when there are no more players. Will you be the first to leave or the last? And I find that such a powerful example, because for my vantage point, I'm out. I'm not playing in that game anymore. What that means is I'm not going to judge me. I'm not going to judge you. And I'm not going to judge anybody else. That means the temptation to say to someone, you're not wearing your mask, is no longer a temptation, because I don't need to judge them.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have the desire to correct their neighbor, for example, because they don't like being told what to do.
Sure. And
the way they channel that dissatisfaction is through, putting it out on somebody else. Well, I'm not allowed, you're not allowed. Like that.
Totally.
And it totally misses the opportunity to step into the sovereignty that we were talking about. And the sovereignty is you deciding what's right and appropriate for you and standing in your power. Part of it comes from listening to outside authorities and believing what they're telling you. And that includes you and me, by the way. And in 2012, when I was in Chichen Itza with Hunbat Sven, and I was asked to be a presenter at this big event, I was told by my guides to tell people this, and to tell people the era of spiritual teachers leading is over. You are responsible for paying attention. And if you think that what you're hearing from somebody you like as a teacher isn't right for you, it's your job to pull back. You're not, don't listen to me. And I thought I'd get a big laugh when I said, this includes me. And I'm glad you're laughing, but not everyone did. And
Yeah.
I couldn't fathom. They weren't there yet. They didn't get it because, you know,
Yeah.
so many people are locked into, you know, their latest and greatest favorite teacher. And while I'm somebody's latest and greatest favorite teacher, I'm the first one to say, look, I'm doing my best to give you the highest, most evolved information possible. But not everybody is as plugged in. Not everyone is doing the spiritual work. Not everybody who is seeking to teach people is teaching authentic stuff. And what's worse is there are a lot of false teachers who don't know they're false teachers. And the reason is because they're channeling some being that has an agenda that's unholy. And that unholy agenda means that they'll give you, you know, out of 5 things that they tell you, 3 of them are good and 2 of them are not good for you. Right. And you have to look at that and say, wait, just a minute here. And say, okay, I can buy this, I can buy this, I can buy this, but I'm not buying these other 2 things. And to be okay with that. You don't have to kick the teacher out of your life. All you have to do is reject some piece of it that isn't a match for you without judgment. That's pretty challenging. Really.
And that's right. And what you're talking about is sovereignty, right? Is like understanding that it isn't this one size fits all world, and this, like, back to your F word, flexibility and alignment. Like, one, we have to have that flexibility to be discerning in that way, and not like it's this rigidity of accepting all things at this face value. For instance, what you're describing with misaligned teachers. And then that alignment is acting in alignment with yourself, which is true sovereignty. I love that. And I love, you know, that idea that you're really telling everybody, like, you need to figure this out on your own, and really trust what the teaching is that you're here to receive.
You know, even science tells us this. The famous Albert Einstein said, you could not solve a problem from the same vantage point of the creation of the problem. So how do we solve a lot of problems? We let go and we allow ourselves to see it from a distance. And the minute we let go, that's when everything opens up. And that's not so easy.
Right.
And we're really being thrown a lot of challenges this year. But in a way, it's a wake-up call to help us step up. Because if we are able to step up, the rewards will be phenomenal. Just phenomenal.
I agree completely. So, and so speaking of stepping up, who do you think that we are being asked to become, you know, through the lens of 2020 and the crucible of 2020?
Crucibles, I like that word.
Yeah.
I think we're being asked to become the Ascended Master You, the Ascended Master Me. And the way we do that is to integrate our higher self. And that's why I teach people a fail-proof way of connecting with your higher self. And it's very simple. It's on my website. It's in all my books. All you do is pick up one of my books and it'll teach you how to do this. It takes 6 weeks of committed practice. And the practice is fun. It's playful because it's meant to be childlike. So you can get into that childlike energy and hear your higher self communicate with you. And once you complete 6 weeks, your DNA has changed. Once your DNA has changed, you have reset. You've given yourself a reset. So once you have that higher self connection, then you can know with absolute certainty when someone is telling you the truth and when they're not. You know, there have been times that I've been listening to the news and I'll hear a bunch of things, and then all of a sudden I'll hear something and I'll hear in my head, that's not true. That's not true. Why are they saying that? You know? And we're so accustomed to believing the talking heads that we think we're supposed to believe everyone. And again, I want to repeat, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to step up into our true sovereignty, as you have described. And true sovereignty means you own your power. It means you own your responsibility. It means you are giving yourself permission to be who you really are. No more hiding, no more lying. True sovereignty says that not only do I believe in what I believe in, but I am willing to act as if I believe in what I believe in. And finally, I feel strong enough to do what my wisdom channel is telling me, even if everyone else disagrees with me.
And
And the
that's
way you do that is to stop judging everyone else. And then it's easy.
right, right. And I love that you're tying sovereignty into personal responsibility, and how in some ways that can feel like owning your power feels like, yeah, I'm empowering and juicy and I'm strong and I'm a badass. But then all of a sudden, if I have to own my responsibility, that's a whole other level of kind of ascended masterness, of grown-upness. And I love that you're tying that in there, because it is, and that keeps coming back to that alignment piece, right? It's like,
When I was a single parent and I had my 4 sons at home, I didn't want to be the bad guy all the time.
mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I gave each boy a clipboard with their chores. And I gave them allowance money that they could do whatever they wanted with it. If they didn't do their jobs, I would, if I had to do them to make the house function, like empty the dishwasher or whatever, then I charged them for it, and they had to pay me, which was hilarious. And if they wanted to do something, they would just have to bring me their clipboard and show me that they had completed whatever, their homework, made their bed, and their regular chores. Now, one day, one of my sons asked if he could go to his friend's house. And I said, sure, just get me your clipboard and let's see how you're doing, and then you can go. And he looked at me, and he got all squinty-eyed, and looked at his brothers, and he said, she said yes, but she meant no. And I can still remember that to this day. It was so funny. But it's like, okay, I've got my own clipboard. I know what I'm responsible for. Am I doing it?
Right.
And if I'm not doing my part, how can I possibly expect everybody else to do theirs?
Right.
So that means showing up, keeping your word.
Yes.
Now, this is another thing of sovereignty. Keeping your word is part of sovereignty. So if you can't keep your word, let's say you miss an appointment and you can't make it up right now. You have to reschedule, or you have to beg off. And you can either completely no-show, blow the person off. That's not cool. You can cancel, or you can step into it and say, look, I've got this conflict. I double booked myself. I'd like to reschedule you. Is that okay? And what that does is empowers me, but it also empowers you, because I have a contract with you. So anytime we have a contract with someone, whether it's because we owe them money, or we have a date with them, or a promised, production, if we come back to them and say, look, I can't do it. I can't do what I agreed to do. Can we have a conversation about it? That opens up the contract and releases you, because you have now changed the contract by alerting the person you had the contract with. I will never forget my first year in New York City. I was really living from month to month, and one month I didn't have the money for the rent. And I called my landlord right away, like, 2 or 3 days before it was due, like maybe the 27th or something. And I said to him, I'm not going to have the rent on the 1st. And he said, well, when do you think you'll have it? And I said, well, I've got a workshop coming up in about 10 days, and people have been very slow to register, but if I get a couple of people signed up, I'll have plenty of money for the rent. And he said, okay, just send it to me when you have it.
Mm-hmm.
In New York City.
Right.
It's a level of personal willingness to be totally sovereign and to stand up for what you believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. So we're here talking about creating the new earth. We're really talking about sovereignty. You are the expert in this. How do we do it? Like, how do we transmute everything we came here to learn by being here present now in 2020? How do we transmute that going forward?
Number 1, decide that you are safe.
That's so powerful. I mean,
decide.
It's like, it's the anti-narrative to everything that you heard in 2020 from March on. You're not safe. You're not safe. You're not safe. You're not safe. No matter what you do, you're not going to be safe.
Yeah. And just say, that's what you believe. I choose to believe something different. I know that I am safe. Yeah. I know that I am safe. Mm-hmm. I'm doing what I feel I need to do to be safe. Mm-hmm. I know I'm safe.
Thank you for naming that.
Yeah, very, very important. That's number one. That's how you kind of move into your sovereignty. Number two, ask your angels, your guides, whoever you work with, from the other side, whatever helpers you have, ask them to point out to you when you don't tell the truth.
Mm.
And that gets really funny because you'll be saying something to someone and the little voice in your head's going to go, that's not true. Now, when that happens, and it will, I guarantee it will happen, you do the following. You say to the person you're talking to, oh, I misspoke. Or, oh, I don't know where that came from. What I really meant to say was this. Or you say, actually, I think I was stretching it a little. I only did this. I only completed 3 years. I didn't do all 4 years. Whatever it is. And you will find that whoever's listening, and they don't even think twice about it. They go, okay, whatever. But it's you staying in your power, because the minute you allow someone else to believe something about you that's not so, a puffed up bio, a storyline about who you are, whatever it is, you create a sense of lack in your world because you have a belief that I'm not good enough.
Yes. And
so then the answer to that is, yes, you are. You're good enough right where you are. You are totally good enough right where you are. And what a relief to know you're good enough right where you are. Right where you are.
Yes.
And that's super important. And one of the ways you can do that is to do a little tiny prayer mantra. Dear God, or dear source, however you want to talk, show me how much I am loved. Show me how much I am loved. And that will help you find your way when you doubt.
I love that. I'm like writing it down. Cool. That is such a simple thing, and it's so profound. Show me how much I am loved.
And what happens is a number of things. People will come up to you randomly and say to you how much they appreciate something you did 6 months ago, or you'll get a letter from someone or an email, or you'll get a phone call, and it will be showing you appreciation. And you'll start to feel good about yourself because somebody else says it. And it's always easier to believe whatever your childhood script was. So if you heard a lot of negative talk as a child, then that's who's running the front desk inside your head. And the person at the front desk doesn't recognize the phrase, if you've heard not good stuff from childhood, that front desk person is trained to only listen to that because that's the only way you could be safe.
Right.
So if you start to ask to be shown how much you are loved, little by little, that little front desk person in the back of your head is going to shift and change and start to recognize, oh, I am pretty powerful. Oh, I am pretty good. Oh, I am a good cook. And that helps you reframe who you are. And again, helps you step into your sovereignty. So this business of keeping your agreements, always telling the truth, asking your guides to show you and give you those little reminders, whatever they are, when you're not, and then having an easy solution right away. When the minute you're being shown in your head, and it's happened to me, by the way, it's happened to me. One time I said something that I thought was true, and my higher self came in and said, that's not so. And it was about, I believed someone that I loved and the story they were giving me, and it wasn't true. And my guidance had been telling me it wasn't true. And I'm so sorry about those bells. I don't know.
I think they're just truth bells. They're like, yep, truth. Yep, truth.
I like it. And so, I love this person. I wanted to believe the storyline they were giving me. And they were lying.
Yeah.
And so I'm in this presentation and I'm getting this message. No, that's not so. You didn't. And, my question was, well, when did this happen? And the answer was, well, when you were talking with your boyfriend who was telling you he wasn't stepping out and you were asking because you were seeing it in the field,
Yeah.
And so then when I got home from that event, I wrote him a note and said, he was on a business trip. And so I wrote him a note and said, I know this is what you told me, but my higher self tells me this, and I need to believe my higher self. So I'm sorry, I don't believe you, and I know that I'm right. And the gentleman, who was a good man, said, I forgot who I was dealing with.
Oh.
And, thinking he could pull that over on me.
Right.
And he almost did, because I loved him, because
Yeah.
I wanted him to be telling me the truth, you see?
Of course.
And
yeah.
that's hard too, to be willing to call someone out.
Mm-hmm.
But when you encounter someone who is obviously lying to you, and they're lying to you, it's very important to say, I'm not buying that.
Mm-hmm.
That tone and that way of saying it doesn't say you're bad. It just says, you're joking. That's
mm-hmm.
not, you're sending the message, I'm not buying it. And you're not saying why, you're just saying, I'm not buying that.
Mm-hmm.
And let them decide what they're going to do. And if they say, well, it's true, and you're just going to have to accept it, then you can say, well, I hold that for you, but I'm not buying it. Sorry.
Right.
And, if it's your boss and your job's on the line, you have to find your way through that, certainly.
Sure.
But it is incredibly important, because when you tell a fib, when you allow people to believe stuff about you that isn't true, like all those people who have fake PhDs, for example, when you do that, you're telling the world there's not enough.
Yeah.
You're telling the world, I'm buying into the narrative that everybody has to have this kind of an education to be of value, instead of recognizing that what you have to contribute is so valuable, you didn't need a degree,
mm-hmm.
and turn it around the other way.
Yes.
So when you do that, you're telling the world that there's not enough.
Right.
You're telling the universe there's not enough.
Right.
And if there's not enough, then you're going to perpetuate what you're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
So the way around it is to step into your power, your sovereignty, by deciding to always tell the truth, always creating a space of integrity with your agreements. And it's okay to change your mind. If you promise to give someone $100 every month for a long, long time because they needed help, and suddenly you don't have that money anymore, you call up and you say, look, I know I agreed to give this to you for the next 5 years, but my situation has changed. I can't do it anymore. I'd like to, but I just can't. Mm-hmm. So I'm so sorry to let you down this way. But now your agreement has changed. But if you just stop sending the money, well, that's not cool.
Right.
That's not keeping your agreement.
That's right.
You're allowed to change your agreements, but you must do so in a proactive way, not in a, ignore it kind of a problem. There's so many people that get stuck with their bills. They don't pay them, and they don't do anything with it. They don't call the lender. They don't call the bank or the credit card and say, I don't have it. What can we do? And it's so much more powerful to do that.
It really is. Yeah. And it's very interesting, this tendency that humans have to try to sometimes put their head in the sand and just hope the problem will go away at some point.
Well, I think it's because we as mothers teach our children to lie. And how do we do that? We ask them questions. We ask them questions that we already know the answer to. So if I ask, I never ask my kids I don't know, maybe I did. I don't want to say that. But let's say you ask your child, did you do your homework? Did you do your homework yet? And they say yes, and they didn't. You've set them up. You've taught them to lie.
Right.
Did you eat the last cookie in the cookie jar? No, not me. And so we teach our children to lie by asking, what I will say, the question you already know the answer to.
Right.
So instead, ask questions that already say, I already know what you've been up to. And here's what I want to do to fix it. And the great example I have for you is when I came home from work one day and the backyard trampoline was dangerously close to our garage, which had a very low roof. And I said at dinner, I noticed this, and I know you guys are smart enough not to jump off the roof of the garage onto the trampoline, but I'm not so sure about the neighbor kids. So will you please move it back to the center so nobody's tempted to do that again? They knew I knew. They knew I was after them. What am I going to say? Whose idea was this?
Right.
When you have 4 sons, you just, roll with it.
Doesn't matter whose idea it was.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's just change it and fix it.
Right, right. I love that, you know, to backtrack just a tiny bit, one of the aspects of sovereignty is coming to understand that you are loved. And because, as you know, that's a key part of the work that I do with people. It's like the most fundamental thing that's missing from most of or all of our lives is that we just were never taught how to really care for ourselves. And that is such a beautiful hack that you said of just, you know, offering a prayer every day. It's so simple, like, show me that I'm loved. And this rewiring that can happen.
And what's so amazing is even if nobody speaks to you,
Mm-hmm.
stuff will happen.
Right.
You know, you'll open your mail and something will be there that'll be special for you. And
Yeah.
you feel good. Something happens that makes you feel good. And little by little, you get it. Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm being shown how much I am loved.
Right. And so easy, just to be clear for our audience, it's so easy to miss those signs in the beginning. Like, it's because we're so programmed to only see how unloved we are, or our lack of abundance, or whatever the thing may be. That's our programming. And it's just like retraining your brain, retraining your eyes to notice something different.
Well, and it's also, it is exactly that. And that programming, as you refer to it, I like to joke around and say it's that lady at the front desk in the back of your head, whether you're going to let this thought in or not. And if you announce, show me how much I'm loved, the front desk girl is listening too. Right. So she's now going to hear it, where before she wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're right, because if we're programmed not to hear it, we won't.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
By just announcing to the universe, hey, I want to see how much I'm loved. I wouldn't do it that way. I would say, show me.
Exactly. Right. Yes. And it's not about a confrontation with the universe. It's about a receiving and an opening. Like, it's about a curiosity as opposed to, okay, show me.
Yeah. And that's well said. And this brings me to something else that's really, really important. This year, and everything we're experiencing, along with what's coming, is creating what I call cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
It's a disconnect.
Huge.
They do not match.
Yes.
They do not match. And the solution is to allow cognitive dissonance, to just say, you know what? I have this thing over here that I'm buying into, and I have this thing over here that I thought was right. They don't make sense. They don't work together. They're like oil and water. And then move into wonder. I wonder how that's going to work out. Right. And it is wonder that is the key to this dissonance, this, incongruity that we experience.
Yes. And thank you for naming that also. That is probably the number one practice that I had to stick to through this year, because so little made sense in terms of what I was seeing, what I was hearing, what I was noticing, what I was sensing. And there just was so much swirling around, and we still don't know. We still don't have total clarity. And that cognitive dissonance was so intense at times that I just had to say, I wonder how this is going to turn out, because I have no idea what to expect.
Right. That's fabulous that you went right into wonder. So many other people would just throw in the towel or have a meltdown or freak out.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I did some of that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then it's always that choice to come back to that. It's like, okay, so I freaked out, or okay, this doesn't make any sense. And so I buried my head in the sand yesterday because I just couldn't deal with it. Okay, I wonder what's going to happen next, because, and just to always come back to that. Yeah.
Very
it's a
true.
lifesaver. So can we talk a little bit about what your book, I think it's your latest book, right? Waking Up in 5D. Is that your latest book?
Actually, no. The latest book is Opening the Akashic Records. It's this one.
Oh, that's right.
And this one won Book of the Year.
That is so awesome.
Gold in its category. And then the other book that's still very popular and very, very much loved is Waking Up in 5D. It also was an award winner, and voted the most best-selling book in America by retailers.
That's amazing. Congratulations on both of those. And it feels like Waking Up in 5D could be an owner's manual that all of us should have for moving out of 2020 and into 2021 and beyond.
And beyond, yeah. And I think that there's a lot of really powerful information to help a person navigate what's happening to them, what's happening to the people around them. It is not political. It has no political stuff in it at all. And then this book on the Akashic Records teaches you the tools to use to open up the Akashic Records and to really feel the wisdom that is yours if you will allow it to come through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. That's so awesome. Is there one specific tool? I mean, you've shared so many tools with us about being in your sovereignty and moving forward, but to really maximize our learnings from 2020 and move into whatever is coming next, like, is there one practice or tool that you could offer us towards that end? Maybe something from waking up.
Well, I always like to encourage people to ask for a day of heaven on earth.
Yes.
You and everyone you come in contact with. And that kind of gives you an overlay of grace, if you will. You know, like suddenly you've moved into royalty. Everyone's extra nice to you. You're naturally extra nice to everyone. The energy is very loving and supportive for you and anyone around you. Mm-hmm. And it helps them to interact with you in a very upbeat way. Mm-hmm. So I highly recommend that you say that prayer once a day. I do like this business of saying, "Dear God, show me how much I am loved."
Yeah.
And to give yourself permission that when you're reaching for one of those F words to say, okay, how can I be flexible instead?
Right.
This is the pit. All right, what do I need to do to be flexible here? And to shift just a little bit. And you know, one of the final things I would say to people is there is a positive way to talk about everything. Mm-hmm. Even the stuff we don't like.
Yeah.
We can find a way to talk positively about everything. You know, how was your meal last night? Well, I've had better. Did you like that neighborhood that you visited last week in the car? Actually, I was hoping to see more Christmas lights and I didn't. You know, I mean, it could be anything. Mm-hmm. But it's okay to say, this was my hope or desire. It didn't work out. And it's also appropriate to take things into a manifestation way. And here's what I mean by that. When I had a pretty good assistant, but she had her heart set for something else. And she didn't know what it was, but she knew she wanted to do something that was different than what she was doing with me. And so she kept sabotaging herself so that I would fire her instead of, you know, her having to quit. Mm-hmm. And so I finally let her go. But I still felt bad, you know. And then when I would walk by that empty desk, every day I would say, I'm giving thanks, not asking. I take that back. I'm giving thanks. So I was already moving into gratitude. I'm so grateful that I have an assistant that I love as much as Kim, that is as good as Kim was, or better. Thank you, God. And I would just walk by this and go, okay, I'm happy. And I would go back to my happy memories with Kim. Mm-hmm. And many of my people who've been with me a long time know that Kim was working somewhere else for a few years, then took a break from working completely. And then when she was ready to go back to work, we happened to be on the phone just chatting because we're good friends. And I discovered she was going for a job interview. And I said, wait, I'm looking for somebody. Would you come back to work for me? And what was so interesting about that is, oh no, I really want this job. It's with a cruise line. You know, we're going to get free vacations, blah, blah, blah. And both she and her sister applied for the job. Her sister got in and she didn't.
Oh.
So the universe had something else in mind, and we were both grateful. And it turned out to be the worst job her sister's ever held. It was really awful. So
she dodged a bullet.
Dodged a bullet as well. That's well said.
Yeah.
So sometimes when things are in our world that we really need to fill, you know, like I needed to fill my assistant position, I went into gratitude.
Right.
And I kept saying, thank you to the universe. Thank you, universe, for. And I would use my memory of something good. So if you're looking for a love relationship, go into the past where you were loved and cherished, even if it didn't work out. There were
Yes.
moments when you were pretty special. And if you've never had a love relationship and you'd like to have one, then look at how your friends interact and see what their love is like.
Yes.
And go to that. I'm so grateful. I have a love relationship that's as good as my friends, blah, blah, blah. I'm so grateful. Thank you, God. And claim it.
Yes. And feel it in your body, like really, really feel it. That's that critical piece, is to make it alive in your energy system. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This has been such a year for focusing on all the things that aren't working right, and all the lack and all of the isolation and the fear and everything. And that simple practice is the antidote to all of it. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You're an amazing wisdom keeper, Maureen. We really appreciate having you just really share all of this with us. And it's always such a pleasure to be in communion with you. And I feel very blessed just to be here interfacing with you. I understand that you are going to have some generous offerings for all of us, everyone who's watching. It's a bundle of meditations.
I'm going to give people 2 meditations, and we may be throwing in a third. I have to check in on this,
Yeah.
but the first one is the Legend of the Phoenix, and this was created to help a person reinvent themselves.
Very appropriate.
The Legend of the Phoenix is from the idea of rising from the ashes, so
Yes.
apropos for this program.
Yes.
And to remind all of you that loss can occur in any form through various means. And what do we do? And
Yes.
the answer is we can reinvent ourselves. And this meditation will help you reinvent yourself and build a new life from the ashes of the old one. And then the divine government meditation is so apropos because it doesn't matter what side you're on, you're going to be happy mad at some point.
That's right. Guaranteed.
And so this is a guided meditation that prays for all of the people in leadership. And what that means is that we are not judging the leaders. We're saying if you have a hat on your head that says you are this person, you're the judge, you're the police, whatever it is, you're praying for them to make the most evolved decision possible.
Yes.
And your prayer counts. And
Yes.
the meditation's very, very cool. I actually have 2 versions of that. And even though we're going to include it in the bundle, it is also available for free at any time on SoundCloud.
Oh, nice.
But I wanted to include it because it's so appropriate for the cycle we're in. So you can go out to SoundCloud and get Divine Government Meditation there. And we will include the text. And then we have a remix of it that's a little bit, some people who have hearing issues didn't like all the, I'll say, bells and whistles that I put on it.
Okay.
And so there's a softer version. We'll put both of those out for you. And then that'll be of great value. And the other one that I really want to encourage people to have is Open Your Heart. Because it's so powerful. Because when you open your heart, anything is possible. Agreed.
Absolutely. Agreed. And we need a lot of open hearts moving forward. So thank you so much. I have listened to the Divine Government. I highly recommend it. I've probably listened to Legend of the Phoenix as well, but I'm going to definitely revisit that one. So appropriate for everything we're talking about. And so thank you again so much, Maureen. You're just wonderful. And we just appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And thank you for doing this work. It's a lot of work what you do. And I'm so grateful to be part of it.
Oh, thanks.